Sunday
you're
and
not
Saturday.
Saved. You are not saved the first time around just because you got baptized.
No, absolutely not.
I'm sorry, Catholics and everybody else. A little
yeah, no,
but,
yeah.
You know,
as a matter of fact, you don't get baptized when you're an infant and you're just saved. No,
absolutely.
This is an ongoing thing.
Like she said,
you
a lifestyle, discipline.
Yeah. Yes.
Discipline.
Okay, so like the first thing that I wrote down was when you're dating someone, you have to have a chaperone. So what do you want to say about that?
Personally, in my side of things, this is what I said to Kirby earlier, which is interesting, and I'm figuring out now that in Northwest Congregation, which is in D.C., I believe 15th Street Northwest, Washington, D.C.
Just call them all the way out.
Got to. Might as well, just so people could see the accuracy. We were a lot more of what I would say open-minded witnesses, but more importantly, the adversities that we had to deal with within the city and things of that nature caused us to not be as strict. So hear me out when I say this, it may sound loose, but to our opinion, it was still following God's law, just not chastising each other or others based upon differences. So for us, the chaperoning thing, and interesting enough to me to directly answer that, as I just explained the reasoning why I answered this the way I do, is that it was always more so brothers than sisters in our congregation, which I still felt was low-key kind of sexist, I'm not going to lie, which I told her earlier. But
so when you say mostly brothers, what?
Mostly brothers would be the chaperones.
Okay. So like a male servant or elder or just any brother.
Didn't have to have a title. Didn't have to have a title.
Okay.
Just had to be a brother. Had to at least be an unbaptized publisher. You got to at least put some work in.
Oh yeah. That's true. That's true. I thought I forgot about that. Yeah.
So whether baptized or not, because I can understand why they got that, which is just still the basis of Adam and Eve, whereas the man should be a person responsible of being a moderator while the woman is the guidance to adhere to that moderator, or the reason why we're motivated to go do the physical stuff to our physiology. That's a whole different topic. But anyway, I can understand why on a chaperone sense why they were doing that to that direction, because again, DC is totally different than a lot of, should I say, the rest of America. We are the last to vote. So imagine how it is in the world when it comes to worldly people, and then also, and what I mean by worldly people, by the way, which she's probably already told you guys, is in the sense of people who are not in the Kingdom Hall,
who are not Jehovah's Witnesses.
Exactly. So,
and also to explain, we mentioned an unbaptized publisher. So unbaptized publisher means someone who is not baptized but is allowed to go out in field service and preach door to door. You have to have certain requirements before you can just start knocking at the door.
Yeah, to keep it
but
simple.
It's like basic. It's not anything.
You just need hours. You just need hours that you have recorded.
And the desire to do it.
The desire to want to be baptized as well.
And when you're an unbaptized publisher, you do have the responsibility of getting on stage and doing presentations or giving a talk. So if you're a brother and you're an unbaptized publisher, you are going to start giving going and practicing that. And if you're a sister who's an unbaptized publisher, you're going to get on stage and you're going to give examples of presentations of how you present yourself at the door.
Absolutely. And that's another reason why I say, we had a conversation earlier, which we'll probably get to later on in this video, which is basically the situation of where sisters may feel like they're not as important in the Kingdom Hall, but that is completely based upon the congregation they're going to. It's not the doctrine. If you actually really pay attention to what they're supposed to be following, you guys are the guidance, meaning that nothing that's orchestrated will work correctly without the sister counterpart. So in our congregation, sisters' talks were just as important as the male talks. They were just as serious, the topics.
Sisters' presentations.
Yeah. You guys got to go a little harder in the sense where it's two people needed
it could be two people, or we could just be giving an example of something.
Example.
Yeah,
That's right. So I understand that being different, but I also can say as an artist as well that is more difficult, because now you're appealing to a crowd, regardless of the same faith they believe in, to listen to you and another person about one topic. It's a lot easier to hear someone about one topic regardless of extreme or not. And so, hopefully this will really break down to you that people who are witnesses are actually more human than what's thought or being told. But different regions, different areas, and now what I'm coming to realize, different demographics. People not dealing with the same. My first world problems were totally different than maybe how she grew up in her Kingdom Hall. Or,
yes, okay, that's a good comparison, because what I have found out within like the last 5-6 years is that you can be going to an English congregation here in the United States, but then be going to a Spanish congregation here in the United States, and the way their elders or the way their congregation operates is totally different. So in a Spanish congregation, like if you're wearing a skirt that's above your knee, that is a big time no. Like you just don't do that. Your skirt has always got to be below your knee. And then when you sit down, if it rises up to your knee, then it's like, passable. But like here in the English congregation, it's like if your skirt standing up is at your knee, and then you sit down and it kind of goes up. Just kind of like make sure you're just covering yourself. So it's just little things like that where it shows like the difference. And then I remember one time someone told me that if you are Asian Jehovah's Witness, okay, whether it be Japanese, Chinese, or Korean, or something else, okay, and you go to an English congregation, it's like they view you, you're stepping into the world. Like now, if you started off in this Asian congregation and you decide to go to an English congregation, everybody else in that Asian congregation will view you as you wanting to step your foot into the world because you went to an English congregation, because it's more lenient in the English congregation compared to that Asian congregation. So I thought that was very interesting. I never knew that, and I grew up as a Jehovah's Witness, but I was always going to English congregations, and I grew up in 2 different states. And then I've been to a total of 3 congregations, okay? I never really I visit congregations, but I didn't really like move around and like, now I want to attend to this one. Like, for the most part, I stuck to these 3 congregations. The one that was in my home state, then in my new place of living here in the South, where I was going to one congregation all the way up until I was like maybe late college, and then I went to a few different ones. I moved around a little bit, and then I got settled somewhere, and then I went to another congregation where I stuck with them. So yeah, that's so that's why I say 3. But I was like, I was loyal to those congregations because of the territory, and like the territory plays a part too. So that's a whole nother tangent.
Now, what I will say to that, not even an interruption, what I'll say to that is, so she even knew that, which I didn't know, also as a witness. So whenever she found out, I just found out from her that it was different from the languages, witnesses in different congregations. So just imagine the reasoning why something like this is vital to communicate with people. Exactly, it's a mind blower, because what I'm also realizing is that it helps me feel comfortable that it's not necessarily the doctrine. It really is based upon people who are teaching this doctrine. This is, why I can easily say, not to sidebar, but this is a quick analogy to suburban schools, to inner city schools. They could have the same exact books and have totally different teachers that will truly decide that child's life. Mm-hmm. That's just a little gem for you to think about. But I mean, attach that to a religion. This is the beauty about you have to have a strong faith in something like this, because this is a tough religion to have faith in. Before we even get into, which we're getting into right now, of the human aspect of it.
Yeah, so the first point that we were talking about was chaperones. Mm-hmm. Like when you are dating someone and you're interested in someone, you want to date them to potentially invest in them, and you only date with the intent to get married. You don't just be dating to just be dating. You date with the intent to get married. So if you're in a position where you're a man or you're a guy, I should say,
you better not be playing around.
Exactly. And you better have your ducks in a row. So it's no like, I'm still figuring out how I'm going to make my money and how I'm going to support a family.
Absolutely.
You better already kind of have that like in place. Like
at the very minimum, you better have the sister in place, that you're willing to do whatever for that sister and not even attempt to be thinking about the other sisters outside of helping them spread the word.
Yes. Okay, so that was that. So the second one is that there's no divorce. And okay, so I have like my thoughts about this, because I was never a person, an advocate for divorce. However, if I did get committed to somebody in marriage and they were beating on me or hitting me, and because I want to marry for love, like anybody else would, I would think, okay?
Yeah, hopefully.
But I can't be in love with somebody that's physically abusing me or even verbally abusing me.
Facts.
And then there's
Facts.
Spiritual abuse, because some people can be fanatics in the Jehovah's Witness religion. So say you had children and that your spouse was being like really how you felt and viewed was being like physically, verbally, and spiritually abusive to your child. You know, there's situations like that. So, you know, you are not scripturally able to get divorced based off those things. You can get disfellowshipped for being verbally or physically abusive or something like that, but you will not have scriptural bounds or rights to get this divorce from your spouse if you wanted to.
Now, what I can hopefully say, not to interject, what I can hopefully say is in Northwest Congregation in DC, let you mess around and play with one of them sisters. Much like hopefully any other males who are good males, and regardless of the doctrine, it's not going down. We would definitely, more so than this fellowshipping, also wanting to see about you, if you catch my drift, about abusing your sister or whatever the case.
Like that elders visit, that elders visit to knock on the door, you get beat. Is that what it is? Kind of.
A very personal,
possibly, or lightly threatening.
We don't want to take it there, but in DC we're kind of like, oh, you stepped over the line. I gotta kind of clean up the mess. So,
okay.
That is also an eye opener to me as to why I can see maybe why she has certain dry spells or whatever the situation being about the witnesses kind of pushing her away, whereas. You know, I'll talk about this in a whole different aspect, but just to say on my personal reasoning, because clearly, as you can see, I really don't have a situation of doing talks on a podium or anything like that, having tattoos, regardless of the type of character I am, right? It's purely based on music and how I saw still some of the brothers in my congregation that unfortunately, the way they treated my stepfather, had me lose not necessarily faith in the doctrine, but faith in the congregation. And so that's why I say, hopefully, when you're watching this video, and this is her video, by the way, this is just me throwing my little 2 cents in, you'll not bash, but be even more compassionate about it. It's truly difficult to be in this religion, regardless if you have the most beautiful, compassionate, sensitive, loose Kingdom Hall. You're still living a way tougher lifestyle than people in the world. So, and it's funny because when I see people joke about it, I can see why it's a joke.
Because of the judgment that's being passed.
Of course.
Because of that, yeah.
It's easier to do that. It seems cooler to do that than to live that lifestyle. You'll never hear a fat person tell a fit person, you're too fit, unless they're being petty. Also another truth. But,
okay.
Yeah.
So the third one is that from my experience in growing up as a Jehovah's Witness, that if you were to have a child in this system of things, okay, meaning in the critical times hard to deal with, is which from when I was born, I have been living in the critical times hard to deal with, or the times of the end. And also too, like even like one of my parents has been considered to have been born into that. So I'm saying that to say, to have a child, okay, and this world that we're living in and how this world is operating is kind of looked at as like, ooh, don't have a child, wait till not wait till Armageddon, wait till after Armageddon, wait till paradise, earth, okay, because witnesses don't believe that we'll die and get resurrected into heaven, but we believe that we'll possibly die and get resurrected in paradise, earth, or we'll live through Armageddon and we'll be in paradise, earth.
I was going to say, now you're excluding the 144,000.
well, yeah, I am, but that's a whole other topic. The 144,000 is a whole other topic.
Yeah, they'll actually be...
They'll be the anointed,
right.
Okay, whether they make it through Armageddon or not.
Facts.
Okay, so that's a different thing. But having a child and this system of things and the time that we're living in right now, especially now with this whole social distancing and everything else that's involved with wearing masks, okay? This don't have a child, Armageddon's like right around the corner, these are the signs. And do you remember that? It's in the New Testament, of course, but like the scriptures was like, mothers will be having no natural affection, people will be levels of pleasure, all these different things. Was that in First John or John?
Potentially we should have did a bill on that.
Dang, it's bad that I can't remember that scripture right now, or maybe it's Timothy.
I'll say this as well, and not to interject in that situation, but still extrapolate on that, if you will. Again, in my particular congregation, the Northwest congregation, that wasn't an issue I had to deal with. That wasn't actually a situation they wanted us to truly meet and inherit the earth. By having baby, they wanted more witnesses. Like, by all means, find you a sister, my guy, and have a family immediately. As a matter of fact, y'all both could be preaching together, and then get to that. So that's what I was brought up in, because again, people were dying in broad daylight before we had cell phones to witness the craziness of just racism outside of religion and discrimination and blah blah blah. So again, my 2 cents on saying I can also understand where she's coming from, and I have a better understanding now. And again, hopefully this translates to you to say this is clearly, these are both parties that are believing in the same faith that have been told differently. Like the telephone bill. Doesn't necessarily mean they're bad.
So yeah, like the fear of having a child in this system of things is because like it's just going to be a rougher, tougher life. Why would you put a child through something like this? Even though like if you did have a child, okay, it's still it's going to be still treated like a gift from God. That's still there. But it's still like, okay, if you can't, like I know one sister in particular that studied with me. I'm not entirely sure she just doesn't want children because she doesn't like children, which I don't think that's the case. I think it was more because, and this is because of the type of conversations we have, it was more because of this world being so rough and harsh, and this is not what our grand creator intended us to be living in. So why put a child through something like this? That was kind of more of her wanting to not have a child. I felt the exact same way. So I ended up having a child, but I much have rather waited, definitely, all the way, yes. But, at the same time, I still view my child as a gift. So, there's just some challenges that I have to go through. Even though I'm not even a Jehovah's Witness now, there's still certain things that I feel like, okay, like...
But I think because of how you grew up.
Yeah.
Mind you, I'm gonna throw some shade to some of y'all. This might hurt a little bit, but what I will admit is that JW children generally, outside of Michael Jackson and some extremes like Prince and things of that nature, where they later get converted, but anyway, generally have a better understanding of compassion of the world, to try to be different, and not different as if a bad thing, but it's me saying, I already know that she would at least have a little bit of different mother qualities versus Tupac, Brenda, and the baby, because the world promotes such a different lifestyle than the witnesses. Again, good or bad. Actually worse than most religions out here. And if you follow that like how I like to follow the money of the system, you'd be shocked. But anyway.
Yeah. Okay, so the other thing I wanted to mention was giving cheers. Or giving a toast. Okay.
Now, I don't know what... Well, you proceed.
Okay, so I was always told, okay, that, like, when you give cheers, like, wine glass, and, like, people do, like, that whole clinking the glass thing, like,
Facts.
Cheers to, like, the new married couple. Or toasting, yeah.
Toasting, yeah.
To the new married couple, or to this event, or whatever.
Mazel
to
tov.
This situation, okay? That we should not be doing that. The only praise or cheers or toast that we should be giving to anyone would be our grand creator, Jehovah God. So that, you know what I mean?
Shout out to North Congregation again, Washington, D.C., because y'all make me appreciate y'all more, because we party. We definitely toasted to the good life. We would make several jokes about Jesus turning water into wine while drinking wine, and I can understand.
But
again,
y'all
why
were
she has
doing
that standpoint.
toasting and cheering. Like, we
Oh,
definitely
absolutely.
partied,
Absolutely.
okay, and had fun. But it was good, clean fun, up to the best of our ability. Of course, there's always going to be somebody always trying to walk and cross that line.
Oh,
you
facts.
you told me
Facts.
some instances where y'all was just past the line.
I mean,
and
can I really say it's past? This is what I'm saying. Can I really say it's past the line? When the line isn't clearly defined because we're playing a telephone game. But, again, if Jesus turned water to wine, comedians have used this joke outside of our religion, right? When you think about it, if he turned water to wine, he had to be a cool bleepity bleep. He had to be a cool person to really be like, you know what? Keep the party going.
let's keep in mind too that there's a big difference between wine and hard liquor.
Absolutely.
Because
Absolutely.
like
Way
tequila,
different.
vodka, whiskey, all of these things.
She goes in on tequila. Also, sidebar: tequila's actually healthy.
No,
And
I go into tequila. You have
agave
to be
tequila.
careful. You have to be careful. You can't just be drinking tequila.
Facts.
Okay, there's rules.
For my diabetics, for the shooters, the real shooters.
Oh my goodness. Okay.
You can drink agave tequila. So I just want to let you know.
Just make sure you eat. That's it. You know what I'm saying? For these witnesses who have not been outside of the world, okay, and you just blind to the world.
Be open to the
Make
world.
sure you eat
Yeah.
when you drink tequila.
Yeah,
Okay, before you drink, eat before, because you will think that the food's getting cooked, you about to get prepared. You can get blacked out before you get it in.
You're definitely going to be turned up on accident.
Yes, on accident. Tequila. That's what I
So
say.
turn up on accident.
Okay, see?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay, so the fifth thing I wanted to mention was weddings and funerals being held at a church, or anything that's being held at a church outside of a church service, okay? So like some type of event, ceremony, celebration, or
Absolutely.
funeral at a church. How witnesses view that, okay? It's viewed as a conscious matter, okay? So you can either choose to go or choose not to go. However, it's more influence for you not to go. Influenced, okay? So most of the time I was more influenced by really strict, by the book, black and white JWs that were like, oh no, you don't go to a church to attend a funeral or a wedding. I don't care if it is your family member. That is not a witness. So if you get invited to, and as a matter of fact, there was an episode on TLC, and it was called dang, I forget what it was called, but it was like 4 different brides to go to attend 4 different weddings.
Ooh.
And this bride was a Jehovah's. No, but it was something on TLC where it was like 4 different brides would attend all the other brides' weddings. But this one bride grew up a Jehovah's Witness, and she was a Jehovah's Witness, and she was having her wedding at a Kingdom Hall. So those other brides who were not Jehovah's Witnesses could easily be like, well, I'm not going to your wedding because I don't want to go to a Kingdom Hall.
Right.
But because I don't want to get influenced by Jehovah's Witnesses. But she was like, oh, well, I'm not going to go to this one bride's wedding because it's in a church. The other brides didn't have their wedding in a church. Okay, but this one other bride did have her wedding in the church, and the JW bride was like, oh well, I'm not gonna go because it's in a church. I'll attend the after ceremony and do the other activities, but anything that's inside of a church, I'm not gonna do. And I was just like, you should have never got on TV doing this.
Shout out again to the Northwest congregation in Washington D.C. Y'all the real ones, man. Y'all the real ones, cause my grandfather Garland Jackson. An incredible Catholic, heavy Catholic. You better not talk about the Trinity, regardless of how ridiculous it is outside of the doctrine for it not to be the case. But anyway, also another topic, clickbait for you. But regardless, the brothers of that congregation and the sisters, just on the strength of my mother, they were honored to do his service and did his service, and which I didn't even tell Kirby, he was in the military. So he was a person that literally killed for the state, which the witnesses do not. The witnesses are like, yo, go to jail.
Wow.
Before you go in the military.
Yeah.
And they did a full.
Wow, I didn't even write that down.
They did a full discernment and everything else, and did this within his Catholic church, mind you. Also, let's take it a step further. Northwest congregation, kudos to y'all. Whatever conversation y'all had with the deacons of this Catholic church, they allowed you to do so. And it wasn't embarrassing for either one religion. So that is one of the things that I will always defend them about or feel some type of way about, because I'm like, oh snap, if they did this for my family, I can't imagine what they do for other people. But anyway, I digress.
So yeah, like, and I had people that I've known that, you know, a family member has passed away, and that family member was like a Catholic or a Baptist or something like that, and they would not go to the funeral service because, you know, that family that prepared the funeral and all that stuff, like,
Right,
decided to
definitely.
have it in a church.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, I was not like that. You know, I stuck to the scripture where it's talking about, I think it's Ecclesiastes chapter 7 verses 2 or something like that, or chapter 5 or something, where it's better to attend a funeral than to go to a feast. So I didn't care where it was held at. I didn't allow, my faith in Jehovah God and what I believed was strong enough for me not to get influenced or affected by a church.
Yeah.
Just because there were some statues or there were stained glass windows or, you know, this decor of, you know, what other witnesses.
When you think about it, when it's your job to try to prove that you may have a better direction of maybe the same type of faith, just maybe you have to be open and go in these places and actually show respect
Yo,
to
yes.
their aspect, and maybe that might actually change a person's heart versus trying to chastise or judge.
And that was my initial argument because, and this is something different where I just want to mention, where I was out in field service one time, this was several years ago, and I, you know, told one of the people that I was out in service with that I went to an Indian synagogue, or I forget what they call their place of worship.
Like a mosque type of thing.
Something
You
like
know,
that.
where
And the
temple.
reason why I went was because there's gotta be a reason why they make their temple or their synagogue, their place of worship, so
Very extravagant.
detailed, extravagant. There's statues, lights, you know, detailing in the
And
walls.
they preach love, by the way. They don't actually.
They do.
Their doctrine is not too far different from Christianity, but the focal point of it is love.
Yeah, you know,
Like heavy love.
yeah, on a different way, whereas there's not judgmental love or conditional love.
Facts. Absolutely.
It's definitely conditional love in the Jehovah's Witness organization, or even just any other Christian religions, I feel like.
Well, like I said, I'll even take that standpoint to say, Northwest congregation. Y'all the realest, man. Y'all the realest. It's totally different than even what I'm realizing about the other aspect of it. So I can't even necessarily speak on this in its entirety, and I'm just glad to be even a part of this because I'm realizing this is the reasoning why, like I said, not necessarily even saying falling from the truth, let's just say she got affected negatively to where it made her want to change and do whatever she personally had to do to still keep her sanity and not feel as if she's cursed. Because what I will say within that entire religion, which witnesses know, is again, it is a hard lifestyle. It's harder than Catholics. It's harder than Methodists. It's harder than Jews. Everyone else can still go party. That's being positioned in movies and stuff like that. Witnesses don't even have movies, except when we're getting talked about, or when they're getting talked about. So also think about that in itself, just to say that it's just as big. I'm not, if not bigger in certain sense, but it's chastised upon. So I understand the people who have left, and I don't blame the doctrine once again. But this is a mind blower to me.
Yeah.
As I sit here.
And I just want to say, we're just stating how we feel. This is us expressing our personal opinions and our personal experiences.
Absolutely.
So, you know, I can always respect something like that. So on that note, we're going to end the video here.
Thanks.
But this was great. I like this.
Yeah.
And until next time.
Absolutely.